Let me get a drink of coffee. This time I'm drinking coffee because I've been
This
drinking
is a
too.
morning edition. It is still before noon, barely.
It is before noon, and I'm getting a little thick over here, so I had to start laying off the beer.
Oh man, I have some noon tabs in here.
Yeah, so no beer. So this episode's brought to you by just coffee. I don't even know the brand name. All right,
Coffee and noon tabs.
all right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Shuttle Drive. I'm here with Tara Blair, straight out of where are you out of? Maryland right now?
Yeah, Maryland.
Maryland.
Hard to
And
keep track.
yeah, it is. You know, she's a hard one to pin down. She's been traveling around and doing a lot of kayak races here recently. And Tara's been a friend of mine for a few years now, and we've done a few rivers together. And but one of the things that I wanted to bring you on, Tara, you know, we talked earlier, and I wanted to talk to you about you've definitely your progression has been like Mount Everest there. And what I mean by progression, your like paddling style and power of doing kayak racing and just rivers in general.
Mhm.
You've been traveling around, you've been out west, and I'd like to hear some of your experiences, you know, of being out in the PNW, being in Idaho, being in New York, West Virginia, the Southeast, now back in Maryland. So yeah,
Yep, all over.
the first question I'll have for you, what a lot of people don't know is you won the green race, woman's
Yeah,
short boat.
I don't know about that. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think most of the locals there would tell you the green race, the green elite, the Asheville elite would tell you that really there's no short boat category in the green race.
Well,
I guess typically it's just like one class kind of men's and women's, and then I think there's like canoe class and some other classes, but um yeah, I figured for me the whole thing with the short boat on the green race was I took my longboat out a couple times and just didn't feel I hadn't been paddling it much at all the whole year, and some people come down and just break out the longboat for like a couple laps right before the race and fired up. But I felt like for me last year was my first year racing, and a lot of times people first year race a short boat. It was kind of a big step up for me last year to even do the race,
hmm
and then my kind of goal was just kind of get down smooth, no major crashes or anything like that. I didn't really
yeah.
have like set time in mind for speed. And after that, this year, I felt like I could have done the longboat, but I kind of knew that I would be smoother and faster in my short boat, and wanted to put down just like a solid time that I felt good about, and like I was actually kind of paddling somewhat fast, versus just kind of bumping down in the longboat and being sloppier. Um, and I think in future years, if I do race again in the future, thinking about taking out the longboat and spending more time in it before the race, and then getting laps in it, getting practice laps in it, and if I feel like I could be smooth in it and actually fast in it, I think that would be a motivator for me to take it out. But until
What's your
then,
preferred longboat?
um, actually the green boat. So,
The OG.
yeah, that's what I paddled on the Russell Fork. I think it's just pretty like if you're not paddling a longboat a lot, it's pretty easy to maneuver, and it's still pretty fast, especially like through the flats. Maybe not
Definitely.
the best for something like the green, because there's not a ton of rocker, but at least for me on the Russell Fork, I was paddling a lot better in the green boat than something like the 12R, which was tending to kind of get away from me and
Yeah.
make me spin out more. So maybe kind of slower overall.
What's your preferred short boat?
I've been paddling the 9R2 for a while, but I think I've just cracked maybe like my third or fourth one, so
Hey,
I think
well,
probably switch it up soon with some of these
you
newer
know
boat
how to keep
designs
from ever
coming out.
cracking them. You know what a lot of people do?
Um, don't paddle? I don't know.
There you go. They never paddle them. They
Yeah.
buy boats and they put them in the shed and they're like, hey, I haven't. A guy told me, he's like, dude, I've never cracked a boat. I was like, you go once every 4 months.
Yeah. You're like,
I
okay.
would
Well,
I would
yeah.
have one for 10 years if that was the case.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
think I think most people who are paddling like really frequently, it's pretty common to crack. Like, if you're paddling a boat all the
mhm,
time for a year, like you'll
wear
probably
and tear.
crack it
Yeah.
end of the year. But yeah.
Unless you're in a pre-honor set.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And then they just explode eventually. All of a sudden you go off a
That
waterfall and it just explodes in half.
that That has happened. That is correct to both Prion and Zet. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Maybe not so
But
much
yeah, they
Prion
definitely
as
have some
Zet.
pretty solid plastic.
Yeah, well, so you made a good point there that we had talked about earlier. I think during the green race lead up, we had got like a couple maybe practice laps or whatever about how so many people, the pressure for a lot of paddlers to come here. And when I say here, I'm technically close enough to the green to be a local. I mean, it's 35, 40 minutes away. So it's like people want to come here and they get pressured into paddling a boat that they never really paddle throughout the entire year. That it's so much around longboats that I think you nailed it when you said that paddle what you're comfortable in. You're comfortable in a short boat. Don't fall into that peer pressure. Oh, well, you'll do a better
Yeah.
time in a long boat. Not necessarily. Not
Yeah, I think
necessarily.
actually a lot, especially if you don't paddle your longboat a lot of people, even people who race longboat, would probably be faster in their short boat. But I get it. I get, wanting the added challenge and something different. And there is kind of that culture around the race. But like for me, I noticed in the Great Falls race, for example,
Hmm.
that's a lot different course, more like big
Yep.
water and shorter, more of a sprint. The times are usually like
Who won the
max time is
women's
like
in
a
the
minute
Great Falls?
30. Um, Ali Markov. That was like the traditional Great Falls race. There are actually three different races. We had like a slalom race.
Hmm.
So I won the downriver slalom race, and then Maddie Kimmel won the
Short boat.
downriver short boat. So we were all in under 9 foot boats, and
Okay.
then so we did those two races on the Saturday. It was all short boat races, and then on Sunday, we did the traditional kind of open class. You can take a long boat, you can take a short boat, but what we did this year, there was actually like a prelims and then the top 3 women and I think top 10 men raced in the finals. And I
Okay.
think Maddie actually had the fastest time of the weekend in her short boat in the prelims, but
Hmm.
then
That's
I had an error
Maddie
in the
Kimmel.
finals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then but she and I both had errors in the final runs. So our times were slower and Allie was able to just be like the more consistent one and get the W there. But
It's a
yeah, I
fun
noticed there,
race.
like
Yeah.
even with the sprint race, I was actually, my longboat time and my short boat times, my fastest times from like my training laps where I used my GoPro, they were like pretty much the same. And I realized in the short boat, I was way more consistent, like more consistently fast. The longboat, especially out there and being in the green boat out there, it was getting pushed around a bit
Hmm.
through some of the rapids. We were out
With
on
no
the
edges. Yeah.
Maryland side. Yeah. And it was kind of high water year, but being in the longboat, and I just really that was racing there. That was probably I did like one practice lap in a longboat, maybe
But
or
you
like
knew,
one
yeah,
day
you
of
knew the
practice.
lines very well there. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did like a couple practice laps and trying to figure out the lines that whole week. It kind of came back to the East Coast a week before the race, and it seems like every year recently the water levels are kind of changing out there, and
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
racing different sections at different water levels, and
I've been
kind of
there.
adds to the fun.
I've been there 3 times and I've never raced the same river.
Yeah,
No, I mean, and it's
yeah.
year
There's
after, yeah, they're,
probably like five,
yeah.
4 or
So
5 different sections you can
I
race.
like that race too because you're right. It's such different than like say the green race. Number one, it's
Mhm.
shorter, so it's like a hard sprint. It's like with the green race, you're kind
Yeah.
of sprinting and you're pushing
Mhm.
and pulling. You don't want to blow your entire gas tank in the first 1 minute
Yeah.
because then the hard rapids are coming up
Yeah.
and you're like, oh
For
damn,
sure.
I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
tired
Oh
going.
wait.
I'm going into
You're
boofers
going
and
into gorilla.
I'm
Yeah.
dead. I'm dead. I don't know what to
Yeah.
do.
For sure.
Yeah, so you feel that paddling the short boat, and well, another thing, you went out to the NFC in Idaho, which is the North
Mhm.
Fork Championships, right? And
Mhm.
you have done that one, and that one's been on my bucket list. It's just a matter of getting out and
Yeah.
getting to it.
Yeah.
You just were over in the PNW at that time, so you just
Mhm.
routed down to that. What was that like? Having that, like
Yeah.
that's
That's a
all
really
short
cool.
boat, by the way, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all
I
like
think
9 foot,
I
nine
actually
foot
think.
cutoff.
Well, I don't know the exact like rules of it, and the Voorhees brothers are the ones who are running it now.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I heard something that like you can race in the prelim, whatever boat you race in the prelims or like the qualifiers is the boat you have to race in Jake's. So I guess technically you could maybe take a longboat, but then the Jake's race is a slalom. Like there's gates you have to catch, so you're not really going to do very well in a longboat. And I
Oh,
don't think a
that's
lot of people want
interesting.
to
Yeah.
paddle a longboat on Jake's.
So
I
explain
don't know if
that.
that's
So
I wouldn't
explain that
don't quote me
qualifier to
on that.
people. Oh, you're quoted on
Yeah, so
everything, so
they
get used to it.
I'm just saying that's what I heard. I don't know if it's law, but no, the qualifier there is kind of the way they do the race there is it's an open qualifier and pretty much anyone can register for they race on S turn, which is one of the rapids on like
Mhm.
the upper section of the North Fork. Kind of more of a it's just a totally different rapid than Jake's. It's a lot less consequential of a rapid. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's compared to Jake's.
Easier.
It's easier, yeah. And that's a downriver race, so the fastest
And
times
when
win, and then
and to explain to people, because a lot of people might not know what you're saying. There's a rapid on the North Fork of the Kayak
mhm.
called Jake's Rapid, I think the actual
Yeah,
name
it's,
of it.
it's like Jacob's ladder.
Jacob's Ladder was it? Yeah. Then they just, but they everybody
Yeah,
just calls it Jake's, and it's a very long series of class 4+5 moves that kind of
yeah. I
need
would
to
say
be done.
all class 5 moves.
It's the pinnacle of the run, right?
It's
Wouldn't you say that's
Yeah,
the hardest rap?
that's like I would think so it's actually Jacob's ladder, and then the race goes into the
Golf
top
course?
part of the rapid golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just golf course is like named, I guess there's like 18 holes, more than 18 holes. There's some big holes in there. Like, these aren't just
And that's
small
why
little,
it's so
you
that's
know.
by far one of the
Yeah.
dangerous
And so
sections.
the course, I guess they have different gates each year to an extent. But the course, you have some upstream gates, some down gates, and you have to
Hmm.
kind of maneuver through. You can't just sneak around the easiest parts of the rapid. There are some lines
It's
through the rapid
the actual
itself that are
race is
easier than others.
the actual race is a slalom.
Yeah.
Technically, it's not just
Yeah.
a like the green race is a sprint. The Great
Yeah.
Falls, well,
Exactly. It
different
is a
set.
slalom.
It's a
They have
slalom.
gates.
You must make turns.
Mhm.
If not, the race would
So
only be
that's
like
what, and
40
it's
seconds
gonna,
long,
yeah, exactly. So it'd be like, in the green race, if you had to catch the birthday Eddie and, do all these other
which would be
things. I
fun.
mean, not really comparable. That river isn't that comparable to something like the green, but
Yeah.
you pretty much like the fastest. So the way they do the qualifiers there, I think it's like, at least for the men's, it's like top 10 men from the year before who pre-qualify for the next year. Then they
Hmm.
vote in 10 people each year. Those top 10 men get votes to vote in people who apply to race, and so they get 10 vote-ins, and then 10 people qualify who are like the fastest on the S turn race. And I think that's how it goes. The numbers are a bit lower just because there are less women like running Jakes, and less women who even want to race on that
I think it
course. I
was only
think
like five, right?
each year it's growing. Yeah, yeah, it was 5 total, so it was um I guess actually no one pre-qualified because I think Marianne Sather was the one who pre-qualified, but then with COVID and everything, she couldn't get to the U.S. So
Hmm.
I think
She's like
traditionally they've done
Norwegian, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
hmm they've done like the top woman and then the top 4 in the downriver race. But I don't know if they might be like adding more spots for women in the future as more women want to try to race that course. I actually came to the event and I didn't even think I was going to race. I'd been
Is it a
dealing with a
mass
back
start in the
injury.
qualifier?
No, it's the way they formatted it. You get a bib and you get a chip, and then you actually, I guess you only got one run, but you basically go to the top, and then you like tell the timers you're starting, and you paddle through there's like a start gate and an end gate. And once you paddle through the start gate, it gets the time on your chip. Or maybe they did photo or something this year. I don't exactly remember, but you basically paddle through the start gate and then you race down and paddle through the finish gate, and they just get your time. Either through photo or through a chip on your
Yeah.
bib.
And
Or on
Sage
like I think
Donnelly won it, right?
actually no, I think Natalie won the downriver, the qualifier, Natalie Anderson, and then Sage was second, but then Sage won the Jake's race,
Yeah, because
like the
no one even
slalom.
remembers the qualifier. No one even cares.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
But yeah,
unless
so
it's
it's like
you.
top 5, and then you go on to Jake's, and
Yeah, and that's
um,
where yeah.
yeah.
And what would you think is like one of the hardest races you've raced? I know that's
Yeah.
subjective.
Well, I mean, I think really like I didn't race and I didn't qualify for the Jake's race, and
It looks
I
hard.
wasn't running Jake's. I was coming off like a back injury, so I hadn't
Hmm.
been paddling for like a couple months, and I just kind of did the S turn race. because I realized paddling in Idaho wasn't as high impact and wasn't as hard on my body and
That
was
is so
actually kind of
true.
fun.
It is really fun.
um,
You actually put
yeah,
full blades in the water and pull. It's
yeah, it was
amazing.
cool.
I'd go knuckle
Um,
deep, baby. That's what I'd say. We're
yeah,
going knuckles deep because you could actually
yeah,
go all the way
yeah.
down.
No, it was cool. It was fun to. It kind of like reinvigorated my like fire for paddling, coming off an injury and kind of being kind of bummed about that and
Hmm.
like questioning some things about that, like just like what am I doing, like that. I think that's probably one of the hardest races out there. I just think the green race for me is one of the, like it's got that amount where like it's long enough that you're kind of out of breath by the end when you're paddling hard. um, and it's hard to be super clean and super consistent on every single rapid there. Just the training can be really hard. The training's like hard, kind of hard on your body. You get really sore and tired,
Your
and
gear too.
if
Yeah.
you take any crashes, yeah, it can be
You can break your
people
body
kind of
or
get
break
more
your
hurt in
gear.
the training. Yeah, I know at least a couple people this year who didn't even really end up racing because they got injured, and that's always a hard
Bad
thing.
injuries
Whereas,
out there, right? There were some
yeah,
bad injuries
hmm
and a lot of broken boats always and broken paddles.
yeah,
I
so
think
that's
even
always a
I
big
think
one.
even Dane broke two paddles, two
Yeah,
Adaches there.
probably.
I know my
Yeah,
buddy John repaired one for him. So it's like Dane's even
yeah.
breaking gear out
Well,
there.
yeah, yeah. Everyone, it happens to everyone.
Yeah.
You would know
Um,
about that too.
that is true. I have broke paddles on the green and boats
Yeah,
and body
yeah.
parts. So
I
yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't think I broke any of my. Well, I guess I actually did. My boat, it kind of had a little bit of a crease in it
Hmm.
before from something else, but it did end up cracking. I noticed at some point there was like a crack in the side of my boat that I had to weld, and I think that day Sage was welding a boat and Jeff was too. We kind of had like a little welding party over at Shane's house.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy, ain't it? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you went up to New York and did those. You did your first
Mm-hmm.
Beaver Fest, huh?
Yeah, yeah. That was pretty fun. I hadn't been up there before. It's really cool. I think over the course of like 3 days, so it was over what is it, Memorial Day
Hmm.
weekend or Labor Day weekend in
There's a race on
September.
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, and so like most people have, I guess, that Monday off work, so we went up, drove up like sometime on Friday, and
Hmm.
um, it's kind of hard. It's hard because the way they do the releases there, they only release some of those sections like once a year. And so doing the race, I think I was talking to Jared Seiler put on the race
Yeah.
this year, and he was saying maybe in the future they'd try to get some Friday releases so people could get kind of more laps in before the race on Saturday, because you kind of show up. We did like one practice lap on the raquette,
Like
and then
right before
you're
your
racing,
race.
and yeah, it's like, okay, try to remember all the lines. Like I
Yeah.
guess you can watch some video before you go, um, and then they did a race on what I guess there were like two races on the Eagle. There was a long and short boat race on
Hmm.
the Eagle, and so they did a like 3-part series. But that was really cool because that whole weekend we also ran like the Mosier
Hmm.
section of, I
You
guess
can
that's
get a
the
lot.
Beaver.
Yeah. Yeah, and
But yeah,
you
you
know,
can run like 5 sections or something. Like it was like 5 totally new sections to
hmm
me in one weekend. So I don't know, like, I think it's worth it at least going up once and checking it out. And or maybe like if you have that from the southeast, it's kind of hard. There were actually a lot of people who came up from the southeast. Coming from Maryland, it's not so bad. It's like I think it was only like 6 or 7 hour drive, which isn't
it was
too
17 for me.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah, where that's
Times
like,
two.
that's a whole you gotta get a couple people like carpool, and yeah,
I drove halfway and
that's
met
pretty
my
brutal.
buddy Matt in Virginia, and we carpooled from there. So that way, it kind of
Yeah.
broke it up. That knocked about 6.5 hours, 7 hours off. But
hmm
it's a brutal drive.
Yeah. I think if you
Yeah.
could make it, depending on like your work schedule and stuff too, if you
Well.
could you could stop somewhere, even stop at like the Yacht or stop at
Hmm.
Great Falls on your way and just kind of make a trip out of it
Yeah,
if you
you
hadn't
could.
been up north
One year
much
I
before.
detoured to Niagara Falls because I'd never seen it.
Yeah.
So I just went
Nice. Yeah.
left and went up to
Yeah.
Buffalo, did Niagara
Yeah. And
Falls,
you're
then
like,
went just let's see what Niagara
yeah,
Falls is all about. Yeah, that's always
you're
a fun
scouting
trip.
it out.
Yeah, I was chasing Niagara Part Two, I
Yeah.
think is
There
what
we
I
go.
was doing. You're only as good as what you don't run. That's what Rafa told
Yeah.
me. I'm just going on what
There you
Rafa
go.
RT says,
You
not
didn't
me.
run it, so yeah,
But I thought about
you did.
it. So did
In a
he.
barrel. No, I don't know
He
about
thought
that.
about it too. They made a whole documentary of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not spoiler alert. I just ruined Chasing
Uh-oh.
Niagara for all the people.
He's
He
gonna get
didn't he
after
didn't
you.
run it, guys, so don't waste your money. Um, Yeah. What else? Let's see. And one thing that we talked about was, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into this or not. We don't have to if you don't want to. Is the pressure of like validating your kayaking through these like green
Mm,
race and
yeah.
stuff like that. And it seems like it's more on the green race than anywhere else. I don't see a lot of
Yeah.
people's like, you're
Well,
not
I
that
think
good.
that's just there's this community around it, or like in some ways it's great, this like hyped community around it, but in some ways, like, people it's a lot of pressure, and there's especially certain people, like some of the top athletes, right? They feel a lot of pressure and they feel like they're being compared to other people, just how they do in this one race of a section that for some people we paddle like a couple weeks out of the year, and mainly just to train for the race. And you know um for me, I think like racing, I kind of just got into racing. The first race I ever did was at the like National Paddling Film Festival. I just for some reason I
See
like had friends that lived in that area, people that I'd met through paddling. They're like, you should come to this event.
what
And I just
river?
was like, um oh, the Elkhorn, I think is
Oh,
the
in
river in
Kentucky?
Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
And it was
familiar
just
with it.
so random. Like for some reason someone put this idea in my head, and I like found a super cheap plane ticket, like $200 round trip, or maybe like $100 round trip. And I was like, at the time I was working in an office, and I was like, okay, this is in February. What else am I doing? I'll like go down to this festival. I guess there's a race. And it was really cool. There's a really cool paddling community there. Met a lot of cool people. They had some good bourbon. And um
That's what I
I
hear.
actually I was signed up for this race, and I was just gonna borrow like a ripper or something from someone. And
Hmm.
actually Travis Overstreet, who's like a big open
I've met
canoer.
Travis. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like looking for his like he was gonna do race OC2, and his partner dropped out at the last minute, so he's like hanging around the takeout, like, does anyone want to
You
paddle with
became a
me? And
canoer.
yeah, and I was like, well, I was like, I don't know, I was gonna paddle this ripper, but I was like, whatever, like, I've never paddled this section before. I was like, that sounds kind of fun. And he seemed super hyped up, and he was like so excited. And
And I take it
so
y'all
he's
won.
yeah. Yeah, we did. We
I'm
beat
sure you
some
did.
like 17-foot canoer in this little like one of the open whitewater canoes. It's probably
Yeah.
like maybe 10 feet long, if that, probably closer to like nine. Like, I don't know. It felt pretty short. And the whole time there's this massive like lake canoe. Like, I'm just like in the front. He's like, okay, just like charge as hard as you
Like a
can. And I'm
short
just like
whitewater
stroking.
canoe.
At one point, like yeah, it was a short whitewater one, like kind of wobbly. I'm not used to like kneeling, being like in that position. And he was just like, okay, like, at the end, I almost capsized us somehow. Like I like was switching sides or something, and we almost flipped. And he like luckily did a brace like right at the end, and we almost get passed by this canoe that we
Oh
had been
wow.
like right on our
Sounds
ass the whole
intense.
time. It was
and
pretty
it
intense. So
and
he
it's
was
like
just so
class
hyped. It
two,
was fun.
three.
Yeah, it's like class 2. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any really class 3, at least in the race section. There's like a broken dam that you run at one point, but I don't think that's during the race. I just thought it was fun, and then I started racing in my kayak. I did like the upper yacht race. Just I was around, a lot of my friends were doing it. I kind of wanted to, like, I had just started longboating and had gotten into attaining kind of over the winter. That's a big thing in the DC area, and
Mm.
something I could do where I didn't have to shuttle with other people. And just had a lot of fun, like the community that was surrounding racing, and meeting new people, and doing laps with people, especially like getting more into doing laps and lapping sections. And then I'd kind of always thought of myself, or not thought of myself, but I just generally was like kind of a slower paddler um,
Yeah.
for a while, and until I got into racing and really focused on like being more efficient with my strokes and getting more power out of my
Do you
strokes
feel
and
that it
paddling faster. Like,
do you feel that getting into that actually helped your like paddling
yeah, yeah, a
like
ton.
it did?
Like
It
just
did. I
just the
feel
idea of
that way
like
too.
doing laps, and like like specifically focusing on, especially like training on race for sections like the upper yacht, where it's not necessarily like the hardest, like scariest whitewater, like, going fast on something like the green, where it's still really technical and there's high consequence if you mess up,
Yeah.
is kind of scary. But like on the upper yacht, I was like, okay, I can just play around with, like I play boat here all the time.
Hmm.
There's a lot of spots where I'm not too concerned about flipping, and like if I flip, I don't feel like I'm going to get injured. So just trying to paddle as fast as I can and play around with that. And it definitely helped my paddling overall. Like just my whole paddling style kind of started to transform a bit. And um I'm still not necessarily the fastest paddler, like if we're just paddling down river. Um, but I've noticed I can like get that power and get that like that really quick sprint in sections where I need to, and that's helped me a ton as I like progress into harder and harder whitewater.
Yeah, I usually tell people, I'm like, once you learn the basics, then it's a matter of getting, like when I got back into paddling again, that then I got into racing, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
got super competitive. That was my problem,
yeah.
and it became an obsession. But then what I did, I actually started like researching a lot more. I would watch,
Hmm.
like I would look up things like those Olympic sprint paddlers, those guys in the,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
Like the flat water.
there's whole
Yeah.
documentaries on how they do the catch, the release,
Hmm.
the torso rotation, and it just actually made me such a better, stronger paddler.
Yeah.
But obviously, you need deep water to make things like that
Yeah,
happen.
sure. Yeah.
Races like the green,
But like
rock sliding.
practicing on flat water can be, it's not like
Hmm.
necessarily the most exciting thing to do, but especially for like your sprints, practicing on flat water um is pretty big. And then I think also getting used to not even the actual like paddling fast, but for me before I would take a lot of backstrokes,
Mm, correction. Yeah.
and sometimes especially on something like steep like the green, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm going way too fast. I don't feel like I'm in control." But getting used to that speed, using that speed to your advantage and still being able to drive your boat and go where you want and not just like once you go too fast, like sit in the back seat, take backstrokes. Um it
Yeah.
definitely
I,
helped my overall
I
paddling a lot.
always try to eliminate a backstroke. If I'm backstroking, I'm
Yeah.
probably about ready to
Yeah.
go into a sieve or something. Usually
I mean,
I'm
sometimes you
bow
need
or
it, but
stern
yeah.
drawing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
well, during well, not just kind of goofing off and regular paddling, but I mean, I'm
Mhm.
usually using bow and stern draws. That way, my efficiency stays. I'm
Yeah.
never doing
Yeah,
that.
for
And
sure.
if I want to slow
Yeah.
down, I just stop paddling, or I'll
Yeah.
just kind of like drag a rudder or something. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
You could
of course.
actually, on where you got big water stuff, you can never, you're racing like the Golly, you cannot go fast
Mhm.
enough. The upper
Yeah.
yacht, the Coe, you can't go
Mhm.
fast enough. But then you
Mhm.
race to green. Well, yeah, you can go
You're like,
too
yeah.
fast.
You're like, okay. Yeah.
You can, especially in longboats. You can go too
Yeah.
fast, and it
And
gets
just
worse.
yeah. Yeah. And I think there's like on the green there's like one or two spots where it's actually good or like for me going into pincushion for example, I'd usually take like a back sweep on my right to kind of like avoid the one rock and kind of like help turn my bow, and there's like a couple spots where it wasn't, I would be like, okay, this is fine, but
Hmm.
just overall try not to backstroke.
At all. I mean, in
Yeah,
theory.
yeah, really at all. Dane does that in his videos sometimes, so I was like, okay, well, Dane's doing it, I can do a backstroke there.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, if Dane pulls it off, he does 10,000 forward and one back.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like a hummingbird when he
Pretty much,
comes out of
yeah,
the gate.
yeah, that's true.
I'm like
He
an
has a very
18
high stroke
wheeler.
rate.
I'm
Yeah,
like an 18 wheeler pulling out of a parking lot of the
yeah,
pilot station. Dane's like a
yeah. Dane's
hummingbird.
like, yeah.
0 to 1,000 in a minute. I'm like 0 to
You're like,
about
wait,
5 to 10.
yeah,
Then I
yeah,
max out. Yeah.
yeah.
I've watched his
No, that is
videos
true.
too, and definitely tried to, like, I see things that,
Hmm.
we had talked about that too, about how in today's age we can watch YouTube videos of people and then like, oh, look what they do here. And all we got to do is go out there
Yeah,
and practice it.
yeah.
Let's see.
No, that was a crazy thing. Dane in his short boat was still like sixth overall, I think, time
Like a
wise
four
this
thirty
year.
four or
Four.
something.
No, I think he was like a 420. It was like a 420 something. And we were like no one even talks about that. They're talking about is he
No.
gonna break sub four in his longboat, but they don't realize like you know he went sixth place
Can
in
you
a
see
short
that?
boat. Okay, maybe it was 428. I thought it was faster. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that was
So,
a
yeah, so he
maybe I
drops
made
a
that up.
428 in his short boat.
Okay, maybe it wasn't like sixth place, but it was like top 20, and I was like, that's still really impressive for everyone's obsessed with all the longboats, but
Yeah,
you know
and he's a 410 in his longboat.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a lot to some, but a 428 in a short boat,
Hmm.
that's fast. That's
Yeah,
real fast. And
that is
that's,
really fast.
yeah, because honestly, I mean, I like paddling a short boat on the green. I like paddling a longboat too, but I get to do it a lot more than some. So I don't get really that nervous about it. The only time I do get nervous is when I don't do it for a long time and then I go back. So I feel the
Yeah.
pain that everyone else feels. It comes to, I'm like, wow. And I know the lines really well. And
Yeah.
I'm like, they're just now learning them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one year, I think 2019, Evan Garcia, that was his first
Mm,
longboat lap out there. And
hmm.
it's definitely interesting to see somebody like Evan a little nervous
Yeah.
going into go left, going, ooh,
Yeah.
it's a gap that big. For him,
Yeah.
it's that big because
Yeah.
he's paddling, he's paddling rivers that are massive. And then you're
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Of
wide
course.
enough for a paddle to go.
It's a different style of river plus a different style of boat. You're like, wait.
Exactly. That's the thing. People don't realize how many times somebody runs one of these
Yeah.
rapids. Like you
Yeah.
think, oh, you just go out there. I was like, no, no, buddy. I've been out there.
Yeah.
Trust me. Guys like Dane and Isaac, we were out there and I think they did maybe 6 or 7 laps at go left.
Yeah.
Just
They
go
did a ton.
left
And
rapid.
that one's a hard one to hike back up
Yeah.
because
And
you have
it's
to kind of.
a lot of
Yeah.
level of commitment and a lot of risk
Yeah.
and injury.
But I think it is really cool to see. Like, I think Talen's first race and he did super well and
He's definitely,
from all those
watching him
laps.
paddle out
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Yeah. That's another one of those young kids that just next level. He does a lot of slalom too, right? Yeah.
That's the next thing. It's like, everyone's trying to pit Sage and Adrian against each other. They're gonna be Kalen versus Dane, Isaac versus Dane.
It will.
Yeah, where's
Yeah.
all that? Where are all those guys
Yeah. It's easy to
making memes about that?
making memes and
Yeah,
sitting
sitting
back
around
and
making
telling,
memes.
comparing people to each other and
Yeah,
just say, hey, you guys are doing great. Yeah. Good
that's what
luck
I,
to you.
I always say when
I
I
never
think I
do
told
that.
Sage when people ask her, "Hey, are you gonna beat Adrian this
I
year?" You
never
say,
say
"Are you
things
gonna
like that.
beat Are you gonna beat Adrian? Really? No, you're not racing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're telling me. It's like I don't want to
Yeah,
hear it. I don't want to hear it.
yeah,
Just say good luck and yeah, stay clean. Hope for you. I'm cheering for you. That's what I say. I'm like, hey, hey Isaac, you gonna beat Dane? It's like, yeah, like he needs to think about that even more. We don't have to go into the Green River localism stuff if you don't want to about like the
no, I
Nick
don't.
and his
Yeah,
boat and his tree. We'll kind of avoid that
no, I
topic.
don't. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, so we won't go into that. Um,
No, I don't know. I don't think whatever happened with that. I don't think I don't know like all the details. I didn't even really know what happened, and I just think you
Oh,
know,
I'll edit this
hopefully
out.
no
If you
one.
want to talk about
No,
it, we can talk about it.
no,
You want to talk about it?
no. I just think whoever like I don't think it was hopefully not like super intended or
Well, you want me to
I
bring
don't
it
know.
up then? I'm going to bring it up.
No, it's okay. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, because we could ruffle too many feathers. We talked
Yeah.
about the NFC. The other topic that we can go into, well, I guess we could talk about like your paddling in different regions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Um.
So for a lot of people that don't know, you've actually, especially last year, even though we won't talk that it was a lockdown, you still traveled around. You
Yeah.
went and you
A
went
bit.
to
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
went to like the PNW and so you got to experience that. And I have too, and I
Mhm.
highly recommend it. You haven't experienced Colorado yet, but you'll probably experience
No,
it
not
this year.
yeah. Yeah, at some point.
Yeah.
Um.
And so you got to go to the PNW and
Mhm.
the Southeast. You spent a long time in
Yeah.
the Southeast
Yeah.
and the PNW. What do you think
Mhm.
is like, what would you tell people? Like, there's a lot of people, it's like, oh, what's the best region to live in? And where, I know you haven't
Mhm.
lived there and paddled a ton in all of these areas, but just
Yeah.
someone that has, what would you say to those people that were
Yeah.
like, oh, the PNW is the best place for kayaking? No, the Southeast, no,
I think
DC,
I think it
wherever.
kind of it totally depends. Like, there's so many different factors. It's hard for each specific person. I think if I knew about a person and like their like overall kind of like lifestyle and goals, it'd be easy to pick out a region. But like for example, being in the DC area, and I think DC area is great.
But
There's a
it's
lot of
only
people
one
here
river.
who can, yeah. But I mean, it's great in certain ways. Like if you're if you're really serious about a career, right? Or you want to be
Mm.
able to like go and get a quick like smash and grab session after work or dawn patrol and you want like-minded people who want to do that kind of, you
And
can still
that's year
paddle class
round,
5.
correct?
Yeah, you can paddle class 5 pretty much any day of the year.
That's
Um,
awesome.
some days it's a lot stouter than other days, but there's really I don't think there's really, I mean, maybe years and years ago, there's really, since I've been paddling, there's never been a time where the river's too low to paddle. You can do attainments and play boating pretty much any day of the year as well. It's not necessarily like the play boating isn't necessarily always world class depending on
Hmm.
like the water level, but there's something you can do. You can mess around. Um, and so I think for a lot of, and I think that the culture, the paddling community here kind of reflects that.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily have the most serious paddlers. You don't really have a lot of dirtbag paddlers around here. You can't afford to live
That's
in this
true.
area. Like
You
it's
can't be a
all the
homeless guy.
people, yeah, all the people, all of us who are like, I'm not even considering myself like a dirtbag paddler, but everyone who kind of is, it's like we're all, when we're in the area, we're living with our parents. We're not like necessarily like
That's true.
paying rent here.
You could be
So
30 years old and still living with your parents there,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah. So
40s.
no, that's a, that's a, it's a cool region for that sort of thing. And then you're close to, for weekend trips, you're close to like the Yacht
Yeah,
and
like
like
what,
West
3 hours?
Virginia, like the Blackwater, I think, and the Yacht are like, yeah, within like 3 hours
Hmm.
away. So it's like not right there, but it's, you have some really good options, and you
But
have
you
all the
keep
rest
your
of like kind of
skills fresh and strong on the
exactly.
falls. And then, like
Yeah,
you said, you could even if the falls are too high or too low, just go do attainments. You
yeah,
could just go do
exactly. So
attainments
there's
somewhere.
always something to do, and
So you're
this
saying
area
Great
always
Falls
like
is your favorite region? That's what it sounds like.
I don't
Sounds like
I don't
everywhere else sucks.
necessarily, no, no, I wouldn't say that at all. No, I
All
think
other
the
rivers suck.
Southeast is great. Like, I think in the Southeast, the thing I like about being in the Southeast is it's a lot easier to find people to paddle with on like, especially on like weekdays,
Hmm.
there's just more paddlers, like more people paddling. Let's just say more people paddling like class 4, class 5,
And the
more
variety.
regularly. Yeah. Yeah, and
It's,
then you're just so close to so many different rivers. But last year was a lot different than this year in the Southeast. Last
hmm
year it was like
I can tell you that.
raining a ton. There were a bunch of different creeks
We
to run
paddled
all the
several
time.
things.
And then
Yeah,
this year it's like, okay, what's running? The green,
yeah.
and that's like, and the green's like 7 inches, and you're like, okay, well that's
Green,
like a little
low
bit
water
less
Chattooga.
appealing. Yeah. It's still
Yeah.
great, you still have paddling, but it's just not, in low water years, it's not quite as great. And then, this year it kind of like last year, this time of year, being in the PNW, everything was dried out. But this year, like they got some rain and got a couple bigger rainstorms,
Hmm.
and now like the Little White's running, and maybe I don't really know that area well enough to say, but it looks like it might just keep running throughout the winter at this point.
Hmm.
Into the
What did
spring, it'll
you?
actually be a longer
So,
season.
what would you think of the PNW compared to like the
I
like
think
what you?
I think the Southeast, like the paddling community there is great. There's like a lot of different variety people do. Like you have people who spend time like longboating, slicey boating, play boating, creeking.
Oh, kayak
Whereas like the
variety. That's true.
PNW, yeah, the PNW, like not that you can't do those things there, but for the most part, people are paddling their creek boats or half slices
River
on like
runners. Yeah.
river running, yeah, or running waterfalls. And there is some really good slicey boating to be had out there, but it's just not. It's getting there, I think, but
There's
it's not the
nobody.
same. Like it's not like as big of a community doing that out there yet. But I think the PNW really shines for kind of multi-sport, and then getting into the more hardcore kayaking and kind of training on harder rivers and
More remote
paddling
too.
harder rivers. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
it's
There's
more
just some
remote.
more like the whitewater out there is just kind of a like just a different class than like the southeast whitewater. You have some really really big stuff, and
But
just bigger features, and not as rocky, and
yeah,
maybe not
so
as technical in some ways, but in other ways, like,
like you would
yeah,
think like, because I've paddled also at NDC and the PNW, and you agree with me on this that I think paddling the falls is the closest to the PNW, where you need those long
yeah, I
water
think,
boofs
yeah,
and boofs off of drops. Where the southeast,
yeah, I
if
think
you're just used to
you
rock
have some,
sliding,
yeah, you have some, like maybe like the pigeon dries too is kind of something that's like when it's
hmm
flowing is like more comparable to like the western
I
style
think so.
whitewater.
Hmm.
But yeah, great falls in some ways. The type of like skills you build there do translate really well to the like PNW style boating. Um, it's hard to like I don't know, it's just like if you like kayaking, you can't really go wrong with any of those
That's
regions.
true.
It kind of
You'll
just
figure it
depends
out.
on
I always
yeah,
people ask me, I'm like, you'll figure it out when you get there. I'm telling you,
yeah. And
you'll
I think
learn.
the PNW it is really cool because people are into so many different sport. Like people
God,
just
I know
go
that's
really
crazy,
hard
ain't
at
it?
everything they do. Like they'll go do like a Dawn Patrol Little White, and then they'll go like mountain bike, and then they'll go paragliding or go like kiteboarding or
Yeah.
something. And
What's
it's like,
the
and you do
out
this
on?
all in like one day, and then you also went to work. Like, what?
Maybe we should trail run. Yeah, it's like Jesus
Yeah,
Christ, dude. We just did
yeah,
like a 10-mile mountain bike, hardcore, and then
yeah,
we went and did a little white lap. And
yeah.
no, yeah, yeah, you nailed it on that one. It
Mhm,
seems like that region, kind of like that lifestyle. It keeps you in shape, though. I got in such great shape out there because I
mhm,
never found myself kind of like slowing down. I felt
yeah,
like, and I wasn't going as hard as everybody else was because you'll break your body. Well, as you
mhm,
found, I mean, your back,
yeah,
you'll start
yeah,
feeling it. You'll start feeling it. So you
yeah,
got to
for
listen to
sure.
your body to slow down out there. Well, that's
Mhm.
pretty good. Yeah. What was one of your favorite rivers out there? I know they're all pretty damn good, but I mean, what was your favorite river
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
PNW?
the one I ran the most probably was the like the white salmon actually. So like the little white
Mm-hmm.
is a separate river
Blow
than the white
BZ or
salmon.
whatever.
Yeah, well, mainly like the green
Mm-hmm.
truss section of that, which is kind of like one of the upper sections, and then there's like BZ,
That's got Big Brother
and
and
then
Little
there's like
Brother on
the
it.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah,
And Zigzag, I think, at the end or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. That
that's
was a
like, and
really good one.
yeah, that's the one I probably ran the most. So I started to really, I got to run it at all different, like lower water, higher water, not super high, but kind of like, more fluffy, and got to learn that one, and that's the one that was like running most. Because at some point the little white, I was out there like starting in February, and I think by like the end of March the little white was already pretty much like out for the
What's the
season and
season
got
there, by the
kind of
way,
too low.
for people listening?
Um, I guess for the little white, well, it's been running the past couple weeks at kind of lower-ish flows.
No, what would you tell someone? I know there's
I
some
think like
rarities, like, yeah.
well, I guess February was pretty good for last year. January, February was like it was running consistently and it was a good level, but it wasn't like too crazy high. I think like December last year it was like pretty high when it was running, like early January. So I think like end of January through like February was pretty solid from what I remember.
That's the time that
Um,
you would tell people to go.
if you want to run the little white, it's really cold there, so it kind of depends. Like if you wanted to go run the trust, you could go a little later in the season probably. Um,
Yeah, and I'll
if you
explain this.
there's like different sections
Hmm.
throughout all of Washington. Like if you go to like Leavenworth area, I think that was later in the spring. Maybe like May was when that was kind of
Yeah.
going off.
Yeah, and to explain this to people that don't know, because I mean, I found out a lot of people don't know, is they don't really rely on rain out there. Like
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
the PNW region, it's outside there are rainstorms that's happening like here and there, but it's basically they're waiting for snow melt to melt up on the mountain to
Hmm.
it gets warm up there and it makes the river. So it would be
Yeah. Yeah.
65 degrees outside, which is great, 60 to 70 degrees in like April, May, and the river would be
Hmm.
massive. It'd be like four and a
Yeah.
half, almost 5 foot.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah.
It hasn't rained, but it hadn't rained in like weeks. But that's
Yeah.
not what makes the rivers
Exactly.
out there.
Yeah.
So I usually tell people right around kind of the beginning of spring, the early spring, like
Hmm.
February,
Yeah. I would
March,
say,
start
yeah.
planning your trip.
I think it kind of, and it all depends on the year too, like the snowpack for that year, and asking people who are local or who have
Hmm.
spent more time
That's
there.
key.
Like I've been there one season, so I was like just starting to figure out, how things were running. Um, but yeah, there was like this heat wave right in, I think it was like maybe in June or something. And it was crazy because the river had been really low, like the white salmon itself had been really low, and I think that drainage comes off Mount Adams, I want to say, and all of a sudden there was this crazy heat wave where like you heard news stories of like Portland, it was like over 100
Oh,
degrees
I
for like
read
a
that
couple
same
days in
thing,
a
like a
row,
hundred
and
something.
it was like all the snowpack on the mountain like melted, and so the river was like super brown and it was running, and it wasn't like high
In
high, but it was
June.
like, yeah, it was like it hadn't been running, it had been too low, then all of a sudden it was like really high, and then it dropped out way too low, and it was kind of like it just blew the whole load like all at once. It was kind of wild. But it looks like they're getting hopefully some precipitation out there this year. I think it's like La Nina or El Nino this year, something
Hmm.
like that, and that's like affecting, like the southeast has been drier, but it's been wetter out there, and the way like the air currents or the weather patterns are moving.
It's
Hopefully it
crazy
will maybe
because
run a little bit longer.
you could start right around like early spring to mid spring and start at the PNW, work your way down to Idaho, and then work your way to
Yeah.
Colorado, because Colorado
Yeah, you
starts
could.
taking off like late May. Then all that
Hmm.
snow melts just goes. So it's crazy how you could kind
Yeah.
of time it. I hope to do that again this year. I did that one year, and that was like some of the best kayaking I had my entire
Hmm.
life, was starting
Yeah.
at like Hood River, White Salmon, and then working my way down to Idaho, then going into Colorado.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, then working my way back to the southeast. That's so fun to time that. So I hope to get that again this year. Figure it out when I get there. That's how I figured
Yeah.
I'll do California too. And I'm like, I'll just drive out there, and it's like, where do you? I don't know. I'll figure it
Yeah,
out when I
just
get
meet up with some people, figure
there.
it out, and
Yeah, and correlate with some people and figure
and
some
then if
runs
you,
out.
yeah, get whatever you can, and then, it's one thing if you do have like, certain people, if you've been paddling for years and years and you've been watching videos and have set things in mind and talking to people,
Hmm.
that's great. But like, there's, I think, certain runs that I would want to do after talking to people, but also just keep an open mind and just,
Yeah, to think
see
to
what
think
crews
you're
want to
gonna
do. And
yeah, to think you're gonna get everything on one trip to a lot
yeah,
of these, you're
yeah,
crazy. No,
yeah.
unless you're willing to spend
Especially
a
like that
month
when
or
it's
two
day to
months. Yeah,
day, even, you can't plan it out too far in advance. You're kind of going day to day based on like what's running today. Where's a crew gonna be? It's like if you're not the type who can just go and solo all those
yeah. Well,
multi-day
yeah. Good luck.
overnighters in like a day, and just route
I think your
everything.
body will start breaking down. It really does.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you try to just go roost it all. I know what I could bring up. What kind of dry suit do you use?
Mm,
I hear you're doing a
yeah. So
video on
yeah,
like a dry suit, a review. You're going
it's
to
in
do
the
like
making. It's a year in the making. No.
just
Um,
trying to get some
I
content together.
should.
I
No,
get it.
I've been asked, like, there's a lot of questions
Hmm.
specifically from, other like female paddlers that I get because I've tried some different dry suits, and there's some questions about like
Hmm.
the different features. And right now I got it last year, the immersion research. Oh man, I think it's I'm blanking on the name of the model actually. Um, so I had this Kokatat one, which was like the two piece, I believe is called the Idol, and then the
Is
Icon.
this
It's kind
it?
of confusing.
Can
Um,
you see it on the screen?
wait, yeah, let me go back. Yeah, the Aphrodite. That's the one.
Okay.
Um, so that's the one I've been using, and I've been pretty happy with it. I'm like
Do you
five
have it in the
eight.
purple? I've got it pulled up here on the
Yeah,
screen and
that's actually the only color they have, I think, at least from last year, or whatever the year I bought it.
hmm
Um, which the purple I like. Um, somehow a lot of women's gear is a lot of my. I mean, I have this pink kayak, so a lot of my gear is becoming like pink and purple, which
Oh yeah.
um, not necessarily super intentionally. I do like the purple. I have heard a couple people say it is pretty dark, like especially when it gets wet. It's really like a dark purple, which it looks good, but just for, in terms of like visibility,
And it's not
especially if it's
Gore-Tex,
getting
correct?
dark out. No, I think IR does kind of their own.
A
So there's like
PCW
there's a
recycled
whole thing
polyester
about
fabric.
Gore-Tex. The way they like, you know, the way they have it patented, and only they have contracts with certain companies, and
Yeah, like
there's like
Kokatech.
some,
Now they got one with
yeah,
NRS.
yeah. So but it's kind of IR's, I guess, like they have their own, you know, technologies for their fabric, and yeah, it seems pretty dry, and it does it's like a
What did
year
you
old,
have?
and it's
What are
not
you
like super
comparing it
wetted
to?
out. So I had the Kokatat Idol, which was like their two-piece dry suit. So instead of
With that rotating
I've used a
zipper?
bunch of different dry suits. I rented one once that was like a front zip, which I hated. The front zipper, it
I do
just
too.
gets in your way when you're paddling, and
It's
especially like if you
stiff.
have
It's real
any bit of a
stiff right
chest at
here.
all. Yeah. Yeah. And then that one had like a front P zip, which for me isn't like my preferred thing. Just I know some women like that, but it's just, to me it seems like a pain. Like one more piece of gear you have to have on you if you want to be able to pee, and let alone go number two at all.
Yeah.
um, and then the normal like NRS and Kokatat also do like just these drop seat dry suits, where
Yeah.
for the women's suit you usually have either a front zip or a rear zip like over your shoulders. And then you also have the drop seat, so you have So like those suits will usually have two big zippers that go all the way across. So you have your entry dry suit, and then you also have the drop seat. And a lot of complaints I've heard. I've used one like once and I didn't have a major issue with it, but it is like you have this big zipper right along like your hips and kind of on your butt. And so like a lot of people say like the zipper just bunches up and is really uncomfortable and like digs into their hips
Like by the
along their
back
hip
band?
pads.
You think it's because
Yeah,
the
like
back?
like
Yeah, that
or on
makes
your hip
sense.
pads or the back band. So, it's one thing if you're rafting, people don't really have issues with that, but if you're kayaking, it's kind of uncomfortable. And then so Kokotat's idle suit, which is a two-piece, so you can actually wear the dry top, and I still
Mm,
have and use like the dry top as my dry top. You can separate it fully into two pieces, and they do like a men's and a women's. Um, and they have like a special zipper kind of system to
yeah.
you like close it up and then you like twist this thing and it locks
Does
it
it leak?
down. And um, I had issues with it a couple times leaking, but I
Is it
think
a
it's just
man and
finicky.
woman? Men and women, same one?
Yes, I mean they have different sizing, different
Okay.
models, but they do have it in a men's and in a women's. My issue with the women's was so Kokotat overall, I think their sizing is they've kind of perfected it, at least for me, for like an average body type. It seems pretty good.
Hmm.
I would be big for the medium or kind of in the lower end of the large. And for me, I don't like being restricted and especially my upper body.
Yeah.
Or even in your legs when you're like sitting in your dry suit or you're trying to hike in it. So with the large, it fit my limbs really well, but then even felt a little bit short. But then like there's just like so much excess in the waist that I kind of had to like bunch up. And I'm not
Mm.
even that like super skinny, but I was like, okay, this is a little bit, I don't know, but
But it
you
did.
got to fit a wide variety of people.
Yeah. Did you? But you didn't.
And
You
then
can custom fit those. You didn't custom fit them. You just.
no,
You
because
just took.
I got mine on sale and it was like,
Okay.
if you do a custom one, it's like you have to pay whatever it is,
So
like
which one would you
50% more
prefer if you could
probably.
only choose one?
Um, well, no, so far I've really been happy with the immersion research suit. Just the way the fit is pretty good, and the way the zipper they designed it like really well, so it doesn't like get stuck on or you don't feel it on your back band at all. The
Yeah.
the Kokotat suit, I did sometimes feel it like because it's right in the middle. Sometimes it would bunch up in the back and be like up
Yeah.
against my back band, which isn't the end of the world, but it's sometimes just a bit uncomfortable. In the IR suit, they have it designed so the zipper is like right above your back band,
So
which is
so
nice.
the
But
so the you choose IR. You hear that?
that's the suit I have right
Well, there
now
you go.
that I
You hear
like.
that?
Yeah,
Immersion research right there.
yeah,
You have a satisfied customer for now.
yeah. No, that's no, that's the suit I like. The colors. It would
Have
be
you
nice if
tried
they
any
had
of
a
the
couple
level
more
six
color
stuff?
options. I actually haven't.
Well, you're missing out.
Yeah, I
I
saw
can
you.
tell
I
you.
saw you had a dry top from them. That looked pretty nice.
Yeah, they. I'm trying to get a dry
No,
suit
I
from
think
them too.
so.
They're all
The
sold
the
out.
big thing, what I liked about the Kokatat and the IR suit was having only that one zipper. For me,
Yeah.
I really hated even a front zip or even the rear zip along your shoulders. I just hate having that extra bulk on my shoulders. Both of those suits, the two-piece Kokatat and the IR Aphrodite, they both feel like they have extra fabric like at that zipper zone.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably to help you get into the suit and out of the suit too. Like the IR one, if it was much smaller, I think it would be kind of hard to, like, you'd have to bend weird to get into it because you enter the suit through the drop seat and it's only that one zipper. But for me, like, not having any zippers along your shoulders or your upper body is really nice. Not having that bulk up there, like in your way when
Yeah.
you're
That's what.
when you're trying to paddle, and
Yeah, that was one of the
especially the
things.
Aphrodite. Yeah, it's
That was
just
one
that
of the
one
things
little
that
zipper.
the guy from Bomber Gear, the old school
Hmm.
Bomber Gear, he was trying to eliminate the zippers up here, so
Right.
he put
Yeah.
it in the legs, and it was terrible.
I
It
did, yeah,
looked
I
like,
did see.
you know what I'm talking about. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
I've
so
seen a couple
bad.
people with those.
It's so
But
bad.
it's just then a
It seems
huge
like
zipper because it went from like ankle to
it
ankle.
was
It
so
was
big. It
crazy.
was
Yeah.
the that immersion research you're talking about there. That one looks good. I like that concept that
Hmm.
they got going on where it just like opens
Yeah.
up and you slide in. Wow, what kind of paddles do you
Yeah.
use? What's your favorite? What's your
Oh,
go-to
I've kind
paddle?
of
A
right
Letman.
now I've been using
Cool.
a
Me too.
no, no. I wish. I've mainly been using Werner paddles. Just it's what I've been able to get a hold of, and I had a Gal Sport that I broke on the Russell Fork.
The
Um,
Mantic.
yeah, the Manic,
Manic.
or I
Yeah.
think it's like Elite Manic something.
Their creek boat blade, the Galasport creek boat
Yeah,
blade.
which is really honestly that was my go-to.
That's a good
racing
paddle. That's a
paddle.
really good paddle.
It's really like just the way your stroke feels in the water feels really,
You
really
bent shaft or
natural. And
straight
it's
shaft?
that one was a straight shaft. Um,
What do you prefer?
but it has like that forward offset. I haven't really used, I think straight shafts just for me, like the feel is fine. They're easier to get a hold of. They're less
Hmm.
expensive. I think it's just like
Less to go
I
wrong
can use a
and
bent
lighter.
shaft. I think for me, like being able to use any paddle, like, because if you break a paddle or you have to borrow someone's paddle for a trip, right? Like, I think it's like you can't get too set in your ways of like using a certain type of paddle or another. Even with offsets, I've
Yeah.
used right now my paddle I think is a 35 or 40, but I've used 30 for a while. My Galasport was actually a 50, which I really liked for the racing. I think
Helps with
45
torso
is good
rotation.
too. I
Yeah.
think yeah. I have like for playboating I have used like 0 or 15 degree. I don't have one, but I've used them before and I think just being able to be versatile and like pick up a paddle and just start using it pretty quickly
So, so
is
you
a big
don't have your
thing, but it can be
Galasport
weird to
anymore?
switch between. I'm trying to get it repaired.
What are you
I
currently
think
using
like
now then?
I think I'm using a Stakeen, a Werner Stakeen. No,
Shogun kind
oh
of.
no. The no. It's a
But you
doesn't have the
also have
blade
a
forward.
Surge, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do use the Surge. I was using that on the green. I like the fiberglass out there.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think it
you
was like a
should.
197, a little bit shorter there. And then when I'm back home at Great Falls area, like Potomac area, I usually use the Stakeen, which is like the foam core,
Yeah,
and I
it's
use a
like a
little bit
smaller version
longer.
of the Shogun. That was what the one I was
Hmm.
meaning the Stakeen.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like so which one do you like foam core over fiberglass?
If I'm on like bigger water, I think just getting a little bit stiffer of a blade and a little bit more like, I kind of have like I actually bought a boat that came with I think I showed you it's like this old AT paddle.
Oh
It is
yeah,
a bent shaft that I've been using playboating. It's really heavy, but I'm like
it's a
I don't want to
beast.
mess up. Yeah, I think I broke 2 or 3 paddles this year,
That's my
so that's
playboating
kind of a
paddle.
bummer.
Yeah, so oh yeah, so
Yeah.
going on about playboating. Anything else you want to cover on gear? Like well, I got a question for you. Where do you run a tow tether?
Um I have one, but it's tucked away. I don't have it like clipped out or anything.
Oh, okay.
Usually it's like it's not, usually it's like in a pocket somewhere
So
or
you
in
don't
my
wear it
front of my bed.
across your chest
No,
like that. Okay.
maybe like a
We
year.
won't go into it
I
too
would
much
I
because
would wear it,
I've beat
I
this
forget.
topic to death.
I think you talked to this someone else about this and basically my answer, I think it was like Boyd maybe, and it's like when you're teaching, it makes sense to wear it. When you're on class 2, 3 and you're going to be rescuing people. But for me, like I don't want to clip into anything on class 4, 5. Like
Like
I
where
don't
on the
even want it
green?
dangling out. Like yeah, I don't want it like dangling out and potentially getting snagged on something. It's like if you can't bulldoze a boat safely on a section, you really probably shouldn't be clipping into it. And generally, your
Good
priority is going
point.
to be the person, and when you're paddling at that level, like hopefully people aren't swimming, and if you do need to really do a rescue, like hopefully you have enough people and enough experience between your group to take care of the gear without needing a
Yeah.
tow tether and putting yourself at more risk.
Yeah.
um
Well, so you mentioned play boating a while ago. So okay, so to answer the question, no, Tara does not run a tow tether. She keeps one with
yeah,
her, but she
no,
doesn't run it.
I have one but I don't wear
Yeah,
it.
I don't
Yeah,
blame you. I have a sling, which is
long
technically a
answer.
tow tether that I
Yeah,
can turn into a tow tether anytime. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so you were lucky enough, to paddle the first version of the or the I guess one of the latest versions of the Dagger Nova, and
mhm,
you paddled the Supernova and Nova, and you're kind of like so you've got some experience with that. You paddle slicey boats. You got into
yeah,
slicey boating, right? And you became a
yeah. I mean,
pretty solid
yeah,
all around slicey boater, which is not easy
yeah.
to be good
I
at.
guess like I bought this triple X a few years ago. Was like the first slicey boat I had.
The holy
And my
grail, the
boyfriend at the time,
unicorn.
he had like a centrifuge or something, and
Hmm.
like a couple of our friends had gotten into slicey boating, and before that I just had my one boat was like a party brap, and it was like do everything boat. I did everything in it. And I had started like toying with like learning how to stern squirt and stuff. And once he got a slicey boat, I was like, well, I have to get a slicey boat. So I just
Mm,
found whatever on like Facebook or something, and then really kind of picked it up from there, and then would use that. I think it was actually one of my friends, Noah. He like encouraged me to take it down the upper Yak,
Mm-hmm.
with him like once, and I was like, okay. And then started, I guess last summer really when I was spending more time. I think I had a siren, which I was kind of big for the siren, but it
Mm-hmm.
still
That's another
floats
holy
really
grail boat.
well.
How are you
There's
getting
some
all these
rocker in
boats? How
it.
do you get a triple X and Siren? Those are like two
I
of the
don't
hardest
know.
boats to find.
I don't know where the first siren. I think I just had a friend who had one, and I was like, I need to get one of those. Like, it looks
Wow.
sick. Like, I was like, it looks like actually like I could throw it around. Once I got the siren, I was like, okay, like all bets are off.
A
I'm
little
paddling.
shorter, a little more narrow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I paddled out with some people on the yacht, on the upper yacht, who were like really good slicey boaters, and just pretty much just watched what they were doing. I guess we actually spent some time on the Akoi,
Mm-hmm.
and I know like I spent some time paddling with Casey Jones in slicey boats when I worked at NOC. I guess that was really when I started slicey boating, was like at NOC, because we'd go to the Akoi and the Nantahala, and it was like, well, I'm not going to take my creek boat. We'd go after work or whatever, and that's when I kind of started like figuring it out. And but
Started
really on
seeing
the
the
yacht is where I
appeal.
feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, on the yacht is, and I guess on the Akoi with you is where I kind of started watching people who knew what they're doing, like watched what they were doing and just tried to copy it, and
Yeah.
in spots where it was like safe. So I was like, okay, even if I fail, like
Like
it's not a big
and
deal.
for a lot of people listening, they know about the Akoi, but they don't really know how good the upper yacht
Yeah,
is in a slicey boat.
yeah, it
I've
is
done
really
it.
good.
It's
Yeah,
really good. It's fun. It's right on par with
yeah,
like the Akoi. It's
yeah.
just different seams and eddy lines. There's a lot of cartwheel
Hmm.
holes, flat spins. It's a fun run.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
it
you
is. Yeah.
paddled. So those are those two boats you kind of started out in and paddled. What did
Hmm.
you How did you feel about the Nova? Like
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's
in
and this is
terms
a
of like,
prototype. Yeah, this is
yeah,
not a
in
finished
terms
boat
of,
for people
so I
listening.
paddled the Supernova and the Nova, and I paddled them on the yacht, which is like I paddled like the Ace out there, Ultrafuge, all different kinds of boats. And to me, they paddle more similarly downriver to something like the Triple X or the
Hmm.
Ultrafuge. Like it is really low volume, bow and stern. So you do kind of get that feel of like sometimes your bows, you kind of have to like plug the bow and just ride it out, And
Hmm.
that was like one of the biggest things I felt paddling downriver, but it felt, they both felt kind of different from each other. The Supernova is a lot longer, so it has
Do
a
you
different feel.
do you feel we had
Um,
talked about it, you feel you're in between sizes?
Yeah, kind
Like
of. I think I'd
you can
more
go both ways,
gravitate,
right?
yeah. Honestly, I think I'd more gravitate towards like the Supernova, just because it was still, I could still cartwheel it, and
Hmm.
it was really like stable on the ends. Like there was just more for me to play around with, versus the Nova was like I had to be quicker with the cartwheels, and on end I feel like it was a little twitchier just because I was at the higher end of the weight range
Hmm.
for it, and it's a bit shorter of a boat. But yeah, both of them were super fun, and
Were they comfortable?
um they're so comfortable. Like that's the biggest thing I think is like I really do love, I have an Ace 47, and I really do love that for, it's just like it has a lot more rocker, and so it's a lot, downriver paddling. It paddles less like a full slicey boat as compared to like a triple X or something. It's a little bit easier downriver. But they're so uncomfortable. Like those
Yeah.
old school boats, like my hip would just be like I won't be able to walk for like a day after, because I'm like I'm
Me
not
too.
even that old, but
I
I'm
feel
like
like
fuck my
I feel
hip.
like
Like
I've been in a
yeah.
car wreck. I tell
And
somebody
then
I'm
the
like I feel like I've
Novas,
been
it
in
was
a
like
car wreck.
even the Nova was like I could wear shoes. I mean, granted, not like huge clunker shoes, but like my like low yaks or something
Yeah, I
fit
wear my
super
high X.
comfortably
Yeah.
in there. Like my hip, I don't have to get out and stretch at all. Like I could just sit in it all day and hang out. And yeah, that's like one of the biggest things was the comfort level. And then the hull on both of them was like for surfing. I thought the Triple X was one of the best boats I'd had for like surfing, especially on like a glassy wave. But
Hmm.
that thing was just so much looser, like so much quicker to spin around, and so easy to control. That was like the biggest thing with those is, um, yeah, and in a like they just did really really well in features, like in a whole, cartwheeling them, super stable, like easy to control, kind of did whatever you wanted it
So
to do.
so you feel Dagger kind of knocked it out of the park with their like slicey boat.
I
Like
think so, yeah.
if it now
It
let's just add a disclaimer. It is a prototype. And
Yeah.
as we all know, sometimes
Who
between
knows what could
prototypes,
happen. Yeah.
the
No,
edges could
I
be
think
too
it's a
high.
good,
I
I
hope
think
it's
it's a
like the
real I think they
prototype.
did
I
a really
really
good
do.
job. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good because you're like the fourth or fifth person that I've had conversations with that came back with like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's like
really
if
that good.
you really like to slicey boat and you kind of like, I don't think it would be necessarily the best. Like I don't even want to say that, but like if you're kind of just like a really new kayaker and you're not comfortable flipping upside down and you're getting into slicey boating, it might be weird for you, but
Yeah.
if you really are driven to get good at slicey boating, or like what you're doing and you want to have a really good time, like it's a sick boat. I think a lot of the top, what I consider kind of like some of the top slicey boaters that have paddled it are like, oh yeah, this is like, this is sick. This is like if you're really looking to do some cool stuff, this is the boat. You can do a lot with it. You can throw it around, but
And
it's just
it's
kind of a different style. It's more
what
of like a
I'm, yeah.
downriver slice, I guess, versus just like gonna tear up in a feature.
Yeah, it's like that's how I described it. It's more like downriver freestyle, and it's got a
Or like
rotomolded step
Rocky,
out pillar,
like if you want a
so it's
slicey
safer.
boat on the
Hmm.
green or something,
Hmm.
I guess, and you want to like
I
go over
wouldn't
rocky
recommend
steep shit,
slicey
which
boats on the green,
I mean, that's not exactly what I
but I know what you're
want to do
saying.
with my
They're
slicey
going to
boat
be there
either.
whether we recommend
But
it
I'm
or
just
not.
saying, and then like the Novas or the Supernova, like something like the Golly or something a little bit bigger water, it just shines so well. And then it can
Hmm.
also do, it's just gonna be a little harder on steeper stuff because you don't have as much rocker. Like
Yeah, we're like a low
you it's
key.
so much slicier where yeah, it doesn't necessarily boof as well. But for me, it's like that's not what you necessarily want out of your
No, you're
slicey
probably
boat.
freewheeling. Who's boofing a slicey? We
Yeah,
freewheel
yeah,
it. If you can
yeah,
boof it, we can freewheel it.
yeah,
In theory.
yeah,
Well, that's good. That's good. That, yeah, because I knew
yeah,
that you were one of the kind of the early testers of that boat too.
yeah. I
Talking
think
with Snowy.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me was I was a little nervous being because I felt like talking to him and talking to you, I was like, yeah, I probably will be between the sizes, and I was a little nervous. But then getting into like the Supernova, I was honestly really impressed how easy it was to throw
Hmm.
around, even being, not necessarily like on the smaller side. And I was like, okay, maybe I couldn't really throw it around in flat water, but it's like whatever. Like in the features, it was
Oh
really
yeah,
good.
yeah. It gets me
I did
excited
some of the
for
sickest
the
wave
spring.
wheels I've ever done. Like I usually would try a wave wheel and I'm like, oh, that sucked. And I would just like barely do anything and I would just be like completely vertical and just could like I was like, what?
In that
That
Supernova.
that was sick. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I seen you out on the Golly that day that we all paddled, and you were throwing the Supernova around pretty good. Even though
Yeah.
it is a bigger boat, it fits big too,
It's
don't it?
longer, yeah, and you could be a really big person and fit into it, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't yeah, it's not like prohibitively big to where like if you're a smaller
Hmm.
paddler you can't, throw it around. So
Well, that's pretty good. So we'll get one of those when the spring rolls around.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when it's not so cold and
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like
Well,
being
that
upside
I
down
think.
right now when it's
Is
so
there anything
freezing.
else? Anything else you want to bring up? Anything else you want to talk about? We're going on over an
I don't think
hour.
so. Oh boy.
Yeah. I guess we'll wrap it up there, Tara. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot
Yeah,
for
thanks for having me.
taking the time and kind of covering
Hmm.
some topics. There's a lot
Yeah,
of other
thanks.
topics I could definitely cover with you. But I guess we got other things going on in our
Yeah,
lives
this is the yeah,
besides
this is
some
it.
shitty
This is
podcast
the
on the
vibe.
side.
Yeah.
So,
No, this has been great. I've enjoyed listening to
well,
all the other ones you've put out and
thanks a
um
lot.
just kind of a different style.
It's
Yeah.
time. Hey, it's time. You're one of my first ones back.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've got some
Yeah,
more
there we
lined
go.
up, and hopefully
Yeah,
I'll get
sweet.
about 3 or 4 more this week. So we'll see what
Sweet.
happens.
Yeah,
But yeah,
excited to see
yeah,
what
thanks a
happens.
lot. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Thanks for having
do
me.
you have a YouTube channel?
I don't know if I have really anything on there. I think I have a couple edits just of like
No.
random creeks.
I only
I
support
do stuff
YouTube
on like
channels. I
I
don't
put
want to hear
stuff on
about your.
Instagram,
I don't
but
want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about your
I think that
TikTok.
might
I
be
don't
one
want to
of
hear
my
about your
winter
Instagram.
projects is
I'm
like
just
put
joking.
together some more edits. I just think it's cool to I just don't always have the patience to sit down and
I
look
Hey,
through my
welcome to my
video, and I
world.
have a lot of it. But maybe I'll put some of my race runs up or something like that
Yeah,
just to have
you
them
should.
so I can watch them next year
That
when
way
I'm
they're always on the
training
server
and I can
somewhere.
see what I did last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so anybody wants to get a hold of you there, they could find you on Instagram. What is it? T Blair.
T Blair 2496.
Yeah. And Facebook,
Yeah.
just Tara.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. So everybody, that's it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to the shuttle drive here. I will have more episodes coming soon. So you guys stop messaging me, please, on Facebook when you're doing another episode. Well, this is another episode. So give me
This
some
is it.
time. Yeah. I make
All
other
right.
videos too. So, all right. Thanks a lot, everybody. And I will catch you guys next time. Thanks, Tara.
Catch
Bye.
you later.
All right.
Bye.